Yes, good afternoon. Thank you again for joining. My name is Neil. I'm Senior Trainer at Creative Hut. And we are, of course, a STEAM education resource and training provider. And in these sessions, we are taking you through the Makeblock STEAM on Board online training course. Now, I know some of you are already familiar with this, but for anyone new joining us today, I will just give you a little bit of background on Makeblock themselves and where all of this has come from. So Makeblock are one of our partners, and what they are usually dealing in is lots of great hands-on resources, which can be used throughout STEAM education as a whole for all different age ranges. So there are things like robotics resources, which you can see on the screen now, which again cater for early years all the way through up into further higher education. And they also deal on really brilliant other types of hands-on resources like 3D printing and laser cutting and a lot more. And what goes hand in hand with those is free programming software and, of course, curriculum materials to help you use all of this in the classroom or at home. And what they've developed recently to help fully support that is their STEAM on Board program. So that is a range of different things that is encompassed within that, but it's all focused on providing teachers and end users in general with ongoing training, support materials, which again they can use to help them make use of this in the classroom or at home in the different areas of the curriculum. But what they've developed recently as part of the STEAM on Board program as a whole is their free of charge online training course, the STEAM on Board online training course, which is a great tool to make use of in the situation that we're currently in, because it's obviously involving things that people have actually got access to, with it being a little bit more difficult at the moment to get our hands on those robotics resources. So that's exactly what this course is all about. Again, I know some of you have been joining in all the previous sessions and are already familiar with this, but for those of you that are new to this and joining for the first time, to give it again a quick summary of what the STEAM on Board online training course encompasses. It is a total of 12 45-minute tutorials being delivered over the course of 4 weeks. Today is our fourth tutorial. For any of you just joining us now, don't worry, you will be able to access the recordings of the past sessions together with all of the lesson materials that go hand in hand with those. So that is the slides, lesson plans, and example programs and things like that. All of that will be shared with you, so you can get yourself up to speed with everything that's come before this, this fourth course. So we will be sharing all of that with you. It's also important to be aware that while you can do this all directly through us, you can also sign up on the Makeblock website. So that is on this link here, which if you want to take a note of or take a picture of that, we will of course share this link with you via email after the webinar is finished as well. But this basically gives you access to even more support. So by signing up with Makeblock, you'll also be able to access alternative live webinars at different times that might suit you better than the ones that we're running. You'll also be able to access all the documentation I'm talking about in terms of the lesson slides, lesson plans, and example programs by them. But what you also get access to is the general user community. So through the Makeblock website, everyone is encouraged to share the work they've done. So you can upload example projects that you've been working on and view example projects that other people have been working on. So it's a great way to access best practice and share ideas on where you can use this at home in the classroom. And you'll also get the opportunity to provide any feedback. So you can provide feedback on this course and other training courses and put forward anything that you would like to see added to it or developed on it. So definitely take a look at signing up on that link as well. And then last but not least, always want to stress that to take part in everything that we're doing for these tutorials, you will of course need access to the free Makeblock programming software, which is Makeblock 5, can be accessed at this link here. Again, we'll send that free to you. You can download that free of charge onto laptops or tablets, or you can stream it live in a browser as well. So you've got a few different options on how to access the software. Okay, so we are going now into our tutorial for lesson number 4, which is called Walk in Place. Now, again, of course, feel free to take any notes as you're walking through, but the slides I'm using to go through this are the exact same slides that you will be provided with after this session and you'll be able to use to deliver these to your pupils as well. So don't worry about having to make notes of everything I'm going through. You will be able to access all of this after the lesson. But yeah, walk in place is all based around starting to animate our panda sprites and get them to walk in place, and a little bit more, as you see for yourselves, as we go through the lesson. Okay, so, but as always important to have a quick review on everything that we've done in the lessons before this to make sure we've consolidated that learning. So we will take a quick look back at some of the things that we've gone through in the previous tutorial. So in the last couple of lessons, we were looking at the use of effects or transformations on the sprites. We'd also been looking before that at the use of speech through the say blocks and how we can make use of multiple event blocks for different programs or actions to be activated, like the examples that we've got on the screen here. So remember, we were looking at how we can start the program with an event block, and that can be by pressing different keys on the keyboards. We can get the sprite to say all sorts of different things, either continuously or so many seconds. We can start to look at effects by using the change size by or change effect by, and amongst all those, we can always get Panda to say different things, and we can add in things like backgrounds, as you can see on the example here. And we've also got one more example of a different type of program that encompasses all of that. So hopefully you will be remembering all of this from those previous tutorials we've gone through. For those of you that are new to this, don't worry, again, the tutorials for all of these are available as recordings, so you'll be able to look back at those and bring yourselves up to speed. But just a quick recap on those things that we've been looking at before. Hopefully for those that have been working through all these tutorials with us, that is bringing all that back to you. Okay, so, but we're going to be looking at something a bit different. So today we're going to look a bit further at how we can make use of all that to create and program even more detailed animations. And a great basic example of animations outside of programming is a flipbook, okay, which I'm sure everyone's familiar with and has used at some point in their lives, and looks a little bit like this. So I'm sure this would bring back memories of when you've done this for yourselves in childhood or working with your pupils these days. So this is, of course, a simple way of creating an animation that we, when the pages are flipped quickly, and each page has a drawing that has a small different change from the page before, it starts to look like a moving cartoon as we flip it, okay? So that's how you can do it outside of programming. But we can start to do the exact same similar process in 2D or even 3D animations, of course, through programming. So this is another quick example of how we can do it digitally. So you can see we've got another blowfish animation here, and this is basically making up of 4 different sprites, if you can count those as it's going through the animation, which is making it look like it is blowing that bubble towards the case. So it's a quick example of how we can start to do that within computer animations. But of course, we'll be looking at how exactly we program this. So it's all focused on how we use the programming to start bringing that sort of animation to life for ourselves. So again, these next couple of slides are going to be useful for guiding you and the pupils through how to start understanding how we do this. So we've got step 1, which is simply instructing you to, of course, open the Makeblock software and to create a new file and start to look at the costumes, which I'll show you in more detail in live on the actual programming interface itself in a second. But it's encouraging you to click on the costumes button so you can actually enter the full costumes interface. Again, I'll show you this in more detail on the live program. Also reminding you that when you look into this, you can exit out of looking at the costumes just by pressing the X button, which will take you back to the programming interface. But I will show you this again in the live programming interface. And it's giving you a slide just instructing you how you can actually explore the different costumes which are available for all the different sprites that you can play around with in the interface. Okay, so hopefully that's just making sense. You've got those 3 slides guiding you through that. But I'm now going to switch to the programming interface. Let's open up Makeblock again. And this will load up in just a second. Here we go. So just so it's fully clear exactly what we're talking about here, we want to always go to our sprites section, as we are here now. So we're working with our panda sprites. And to go into looking at the different costumes for this specific sprite, I'm just clicking on the costumes icon here. And you can see that we have built into the software there are two different costumes. You can see the differences in each one. You can actually see it changing here in the stage area as I click on each one as well. Okay, so you can see straight away where we're going with this. Even just by clicking back and forth, it's starting to make it look like that panda is walking. But we'll come back to how we can, of course, program that in a moment. So I'm just going to cross out of this. So to get out of this costumes interface, just press this cross and we're back to the programming interface, as simple as that. Okay, so the next step on this is getting hands-on with actually coding it, okay? Coding it to start animating, to switch between those different costumes that we've just been looking at now. So the main block that we need to be familiar with and know how to use, so the new block we're introducing now, is the next costume block. So this is found in the looks block area. And as you can see, its function is that when a sprite has a multiple costumes, you can switch the sprites from one costume to the next costume and back and forth by using this block. Okay, so exactly that now. You can see it's again given us the step-by-step guide on exactly how to do that. I'm not going to go through this word for word in detail because I think it's fairly self-explanatory. But before we go to the next stage, I'm just going to quickly show you this in action. So let's go back to our programming. So I want an event block. So when green flag clicks, and now to my looks, and I want next costume. Like so. Actually, that's not the one I want. I actually want the when space key pressed, sorry, when space key pressed, go to next costume. So if I make this bigger and press the green flag to start our program. So what I'm going to do now is press my space key, and you can see it's just changing from costume to costume as I keep pressing that space key. Okay, simple as that, very basic, but you can start to see straight away just by pressing that space key, it looks like it's animating Panda to walk. Okay, so that's the very first basic level of getting it to convert from one costume to the next within that sprite. But we can expand on this within the coding in a lot of different, more complex ways. So the next stage, the next task is looking at how we can use loops to help us do this. So I know I referred briefly to loops in in the lesson before this. We're going to start to take a closer look at how we can use loops within our coding interface. And as it sounds, I'm sure some of you might already be familiar with, we can get a programming block or a full program to be executed repeatedly by using a loop within programming. There's a couple of different ways we can use a loop. So to give you a couple of different examples straight away, so this is good again for our full program knowledge, that we can get a loop to repeat forever. So we'll just continuously repeat whatever blocks we put in within this loop, or we can get it to repeat for X amount of time. So like we've got here, the example could be 10, but it can be however many times you want. Okay, so again, hopefully that's making sense. We've again got the slides instructing you how to explore this, or how to get the pupils to explore this. So it goes through it step by step, basically asking you to first of all try the repeat 10 and the repeat forever, just so they can consolidate their understanding of what the difference is between the repeat 10 and the forever block. So let's take another quick look at that now. So I'll begin with the let's go for the forever block. Actually, no, start with the repeat block. So I've got this one for repeat 10, but I can change this to however many I want it to be. So whatever value I want. So let's say 6, for example. So now when I bring Panda up, let's activate the program. I'm going to hit space now. So you can see it did that quite quickly, but it's repeated the action 6 times, doing that every time I hit that space bar. Okay, so I'm just going to stop that program and quickly change that out for the delete that, bring in the forever block, put my next costume block back in like so, and let's take a look at that now. So I'm hitting that green to begin, and now I'm hitting my space tab, and you can see Panda just keeps going and going and going and going and going and going forever. So to stop this now, I just need to click the stop icon here, and it will stop that. Okay, so that's hopefully again starting to make sense how we use the loops, but you can see straight away from using that loop just with a block within it, it was making Panda look like, rather than walking in place, running in place. It was switching between each costume extremely fast, and I'm sure you were tiring poor Panda out just by getting to switch between each costume so quickly. So we can look at what else we can do within the coding to slow that down. We do that, of course, by using wait blocks. So this is where we can basically control the flow of the program to be better suited to what we want the animation to do. So this wait block, again, fairly self-explanatory, but it does enable us to pause the program and wait for the specified amount of time before going back to the next stage in the code. Okay, so again, it's given us that step-by-step guide on exactly how to do it. So I'm not going to talk through this word for word, fairly self-explanatory, but you've got this to, again, guide you and the pupils through it. But let's just take a look at that action back on the interface. So I'm, again, within my control blocks tab here, I'm going to bring in that wait for block. So it always defaults to wait for 1 second, but you can change this to whatever you want it to be. As an example, let's go for 0.5, like so. And now let's see this in action. Hitting green to start the program. Now I'm pressing my space key, and you can see now it looks like Panda's going for more of a leisurely walk in place rather than that run, and that is through us using that wait for half a second block. Okay, so I think so. Again, fairly self-explanatory, but it's a great way to go through this process just to fully understand how we use those loops and how we use those wait for blocks. Okay, so the next stage is trying this again for ourselves, or getting the pupils to try it for themselves, to experiment and see what else they can get Panda to do. Okay, so we want to work towards something like this first of all, where we can combine Panda walking but using say blocks to tell us what's happening as well. So the initial independent practice for you pupils is suggested as being this. So we want, first of all, to get Panda to speak as well as moving, as well as walking in place. We want to introduce, again, some of those things we've been using in the previous lessons, the say blocks, and not just shout out what they're doing, but tell us what's happening through each stage. This is a great way of demonstrating exactly what's happening, changing from costume number 1 to costume number 2, and it's also encouraging to bring in an appropriate background, again, which we were looking at in the previous lessons. So we will take a look at exactly that. Rather than build it up from scratch, conscious of time, so we will use a pre-put together program, but I'll talk through exactly what I've done. But this is an example of what I put together for exactly this. Okay, so first of all, as it said in the activity there, it wants us to bring in a suitable background. So you can see here within my stage area, I've chosen a nice city type background. As a reminder of where we get those, that is in the background tab here. And clicking plus, we can filter through and find all sorts of different suitable backgrounds depending on what we want the scenario for Panda to be. I've just gone for nice city backgrounds. And then going back to the program interface, so this is what I've created. So I basically started, first of all, with just a simple say block saying I can walk in place. And before then going into the looped program to get Panda to start animating. It's basically just a simple extension to what we were just looking at. Rather than just being the next costume and wait for block within the loop, I've also got a say block for costume number 1. And again, then another say block for costume number 2. With the actual switching between the next costume with this block here and waiting for half a second before looping back to start again. So again, hopefully that makes sense. I'm just asking it to loop this forever and say what is happening at each costume change as they're going along. Okay, so let's take a look at that in action again. Hitting play, and off we go. I can walk in place. 1, 2, 1, 2. And it will keep doing that until I stop the program. I think it's just a great starting point just to, again, make sure they understand what's happening, and that those say blocks are great for demonstrating that. Okay, so that is that first part of the task. Fairly straightforward, but they can experiment all sorts of different backgrounds, getting Panda to say all sorts of different things as they're going through the switch of the costumes. But the next step for the extension task is it's giving you some suggested things you can do. So as you can see here, it's saying that maybe we could look at after the panda walks in place on the spot a number of times, we could get it to do something like saying, I can also stand still, and then take 2 steps forward before stopping completely. We could also look at adding transformation effects while Panda is walking and changing the event that triggers Panda to walk. So that's again changing the key press that activates the program. So I'm sure you can see, just basically trying to bring as much of what we've looked at in the previous lessons, the previous tutorials, all together. So we could do these exact activities, but I think the point is that we want to get the pupils to experiment, to see what they can get it to do, what they can build as an animation, which again is what they'll want to naturally do. They'll want to explore how they can adapt it. So that's exactly what I've gone for myself. So I've taken it a couple of steps further. And again, rather than fully building up live, I'm actually just going to bring in the example program for what I put together for this. Okay, so hopefully you can see this on my screen. So a slightly more complex program. I've used a combination of blocks in here for the speech, so the say blocks, the switching from costume to costume here, which is really basically the same code that I was just using in the last example program. I've then gone to getting Panda to stand still with the say block here, but what I've also then started to bring in is graphic blocks. You can see I'm starting to use the effect blocks here and here. But if you think back to one of our first lessons, we also looked at how we could get Panda to move so many steps, which means how many pixels they move across the screen. So I've looked at bringing in those as well to get Panda to work across the screen. So what I'll also do is I will send you this example code so you can play around with this and understand it, and your pupils can understand it a bit further as well. But I just want to show you this in action. What I've also done for my event block is I've used the when right arrow key pressed. And you'll also notice I've gone a little bit of a step further. I decided that I wanted to bring in some background music for when Panda is walking. So I've also brought in this block, which repeats a certain sound for me as well. I know we looked briefly at sounds in the last tutorial as well. So hopefully this is making sense. I'll come back to this again in a moment, but let's see this in action. So I'm bringing the stage area more into view, clicking my green, and now when I hit the right icon, it's going to start playing all those different things I brought into my animation. So here we go. There we go. Okay, so that was my very quick go at animation. So again, hopefully you can see what was happening there. But looking back at the code, the first thing was just getting Panda to say, check me out, see what I can do. I can first of all walk in place, which was done with this code here. Then just got on to stand still, which it did because there was no movements or effects blocks or next costume blocks being involved here. And then I was going into the combination of the effects blocks together with moving across the screen. And you can see it repeated that action 3 times. So we went from whirling into pixelating and taking a step forward each time they did that. And of course, I had this sound playing in the background as I was going through. And it's simple as that. Okay, so hopefully that's giving you some ideas and inspiration on how you can use this activity. Of course, I'm really confident that your pupils will be able to come up with something a lot more creative, a lot better when they start to experiment with their own animation. But I just want to stress, when they get to that point, once you've guided them through to start to have a go at creating their own animation, always encourage them to share their work with you. So get them to talk you through, or their siblings through, or their fellow pupils through what they've created, what's happening, how it works, and why they've gone about that way. Always the important part of the process. And then, of course, once they've gone through that, we have our review stage. So we've again got our quiz just to check we understand certain things that we've learned about in this lesson. So I'll go through this with you guys Again, exactly as we always do, if you can just try and imagine the answer in your head, I will reveal the correct answer in a second. So this is simply, which of the following blocks is not in the control block area? So one of these blocks is not in the block area. So when space key press is not in the control block area, that is of course in the events block area. It's all these ones that we've just been learning about, what's in the control area, controlling the flow of the code. Okay, so we all got that right. Number 2, which block area does next costume belong to? Which of these 4 block areas does the next costume block that we've been using today belong to? It is of course D, looks. Okay, so it is controlling the looks of the sprites. So again, hopefully we all got that one right. Number 3, last but not least, which of the following codes can make the sprite say "I'm fine" 3 times? So this is making use of those repeat or loop blocks we made use of. So just take a quick scan of these different options. Think to yourself which one of these you think would be the correct one to get the sprite to say "I'm fine" 3 times. Bit of a tricky one, but hopefully we've all got the correct answer. It is, of course, D. Again, so you could have got the 3 times, but it's actually repeating it 10 times, so it wouldn't be quite right. And this one is doing it for a total of 3 seconds rather than getting to do 3 different times. And this one is a combination of 2 times. It's really saying it. Okay, so hopefully we again have got all of those correct. But thank you very much. That's everything we wanted to go through for lesson number 4. Hope you've enjoyed that and found it useful. Again, I will be sharing all of the lesson materials in terms of slides, lesson plans, and those example programs that I've been using in that for you to look back at. Of course, as always, once you start to use these, account the lessons of your pupils. Any questions you've got at all, please always feel free to get in touch with us, which is info@creative-hut.com. We do have obviously more information on these resources and everything else we can help on our website, so please feel free to check that out. I will be sharing with you all the full schedule for these tutorials via email. But keep an eye on our social media channels as well. We'll be promoting all the different opportunities for getting involved in this via that as well. But hopefully, again, this has helped. Thank you very much again for joining. We will hopefully see you online again soon for the next sessions, but hope you have a great weekend and thank you very much. Bye for now.